Songwriting has a lot of aspects to it. Let's see how they rank against each other in terms of how much they influence the songwriting process. We'll be focusing on lyrics primarily though. Here are the aspects, here's the ranking scale. And by the way, I'm Vadusha and I'm the greatest expert on songwriting in the entire world, and maybe even on YouTube. Jokes aside, I'm Vadusha and this is my channel where I try and make the world better with more songs of mine and yours. Let's go. Playing a musical instrument. Let's start with that. This is not really important in terms of song lyrics, but it does help when you strum something or play some chords against which you can hum a melody, and then that melody turns into syllables that turn into words. But I'd say this is not very important. I'd say it's a 2. Being a genius, being talented overall, it does help a lot. If you're talented, if you can do this, this is a very good starting point. It's like playing a musical instrument. If your fingers are stretchy, if your ligaments are well built for music, it's an enormous head start. And it makes you practice more because you like the process. It's easier for you to get into the musical instrument and start playing. But once time passes, your talent gets less and less important and your hours of practice, your dedication become more prominent in terms of their influence on your musical ability. Same here. I guess talent does matter, but it's not the pinnacle of it all. As opposed to experience and practice. Experience and practice probably one of the biggest influences on your songwriting. Combined with the talent or with absence thereof, it is practice and experience that makes your songwriting top-notch. Doing improv, it does help a lot. Improv is a very nice skill to have in your skill box and a very nice practice routine as well. It makes you practice associations, and while we're there, being able to associate is a very important skill. One of the most important skills actually. It's the very first step of your songwriting in terms of lyrics. You have a song topic and you associate out of the topic. And this is where approaches begin to differ. I'd say your ability to associate and your skill to associate, how much you've practiced it, is one of the things that affects your songwriting the most. Singing ability, probably if you can imagine yourself singing your lyrics, you can do better in terms of writing them. But I'd say singing is pretty much the same as playing a musical instrument there. It does help, but ever so slightly. Speaking of music, your overall musical background, how much music you have listened to, how many lyrics you have heard, is one of the top factors that contribute to your overall association capabilities. So listening to a lot of music is very positive towards your songwriting. You know the hooks, you know lyrical patterns, you know more rhymes and things like that. Same is true for your overall experience with books and texts and poetry and any other things that concern literature. How well read you are impacts your vocabulary. The books you've read form your style of writing. And most importantly, you can affect that. You can keep reading books, gaining more experience. So that's something you can actually practice to improve your songwriting skills. Having a pen and a paper is sort of important. It used to be very important. It was the only tool you could write with. Now it's not, so I'd say it's a 4. You gotta have a physical form of your lyrics. You can't really go on remembering everything you come up with, especially when you come up with things when you're going to bed or when you're taking a shower, doing some chores, moments in life when brain kicks in and gives you spontaneous ideas which you need to write down. So I totally recommend having a pen and a paper. I'm not sure about you, but I have to write them down. I don't remember anything I write. And this will eventually lead you to having a baggage of snippets, of little pieces of drafts. And that's also very important, to keep notes, to have a physical copy of every of your ideas. Speaking of ideas, inspiration is one of the things that is traditionally considered the most important thing for your songwriting and poetry and lyrics and things like that. I think inspiration is not all that important. It's kind of as important as the talent, but it's not the most important thing for your songwriting. You can't rely on inspiration because it hits spontaneously. You can't be a professional lyrics writer if you rely on inspiration, if inspiration is your only tool, because you can't sit and wait for inspiration. You have to dedicate time to make sure you meet deadlines, to make sure your writing process is up and running. And that is why, as opposed to inspiration, I totally recommend you get yourself a streamlined process of writing lyrics, an algorithm you follow that controllably ends up in you actually producing some lyrics. So this is one of the most important things, having a complicated process, of which associations is step 1. And step 2 of the process is placing the associations in strong positions, then rhyming backwards. If you've ever seen my videos, you know what rhyming backwards is, and your rhyming skills are important. I'd say it's not as important as having the process, because you can always substitute your rhyming with a rhyming dictionary like RhymeZone I'm using. If you know any rhyming software tools that are better than RhymeZone, please let me know in the comments, because so far RhymeZone is the best tool for rhyming online I know. It has really advanced ways to find rhymes. Having both your internal rhyming skill and a tool to help you can really boost your songwriting. Next one up is your overall linguistics acumen. How well you know stylistics, how many devices you know, how many of them you can use. Do you know parallel constructions? Do you know synonyms, antonyms? Do you know metaphors? All of these things help you overcome songwriting difficulties. It's like knowing musical theory when writing music. It's not a limiting factor, but when you hit a problem, knowing the theory helps you overcome the problem controllably. So I'd say this is somewhat important. Knowing song structures, verses and choruses and bridges, intros and outros and things like that, it may help. I'd say it's a 3. You can't write a verse if you don't know it's a verse, or probably you can. Googling things up. It really helps if you're writing about a topic you don't really know much about. I totally use Google professionally when I have to write some lyrics about something I have no idea about, like Minecraft or nuclear physics. This may help, as well as Wikipedia. Probably they are two very similar tools, but not entirely the same. Then goes ChatGPT, which helps a lot to streamline your associations in your synonyms game. It's not as helpful as Google, for example, but it is helpful. You can use it to streamline your process, and depending on your goals in songwriting, it may be a 2 or a 3. I use ChatGPT all the time to write songs because it can give you a lot of associations really fast. The downside of it is that you don't think of those associations. They're just there on paper, and it doesn't form synapses in your brain, so you don't really come up with ideas as fast as you would have if you came up with those associations yourself. But still, it speeds up the game a lot. Next one up is knowing musical theory and how music words and being able to produce music. It is as important as the other music-related things, like your DAW, for example. If you have a DAW, you can compose parts of your music, and it can influence your songwriting in terms of lyrics, because you have your verses and choruses streamlined. You see how many verses you need to write. You see how many choruses you need to write, how long the verses are, how long the choruses are, and that can influence your lyrics as well. So a DAW is something you could really use. Having a computer or some digital way to get a physical copy of your lyrics is the same as having a pen and a paper. I use a computer. I don't use a pen and paper. It's been a while since I've used a pen and a paper. Emotions. Emotions are important. Living through emotions is a way for you to generate an emotional background that could resonate in your lyrics so that people could relate to your lyrics. I'd say it's a 3 or something. Uploading your finished music to platforms is somewhat important. If you write and write and write and you never release anything you write, you never know if anyone likes that. Depending on your goals in your songwriting, this can be either a 1 or a 4. For me, it's a 4, because when I release something, I forget about it and I free up some memory space to keep on writing. Storytelling. Storytelling is a nice tool to have. It's not as important as associations and having a streamlined process, but it is important. It makes your lyrics more coherent, easier to follow, and more interesting to listen to. Using references. I'd say you could use a lot of references and shape your lyrics if you want to mimic an artist. That's a very good tool when you're first starting off, but once you've gained some experience, this is not something you use every day. I'd keep it in mind, but I'd not rely on it entirely. Hard work and dedication. Really important. The more hard work you put in, the more experience you ultimately gain. So hard work is what makes you different from others. Talent is important, but I think hard work is more important. Doing stand-up comedy is a really neat way for you to practice punchlines and making concise lines that end up in very strong and energetic ideas and thoughts. It's kind of same as improv, put it in a 3 category. Editing your lyrics. Really important, but I'd say it's a 4 as opposed to having a process or putting in the hard work or doing associations. Once you've written your lyrics, let it cool for week or a month, return and edit those, and you'll see how much less you care about those words in line, and you feel more free to edit the lyrics. So eventually the end result is better. Now working with other people and collaborating. It is really fun, but it's not all that influential towards your lyric writing. Recommend you try it, but it's not a must. Copying someone else's lyrics, stealing pieces from anywhere, I think this one is not at all important. Having someone else write for you or looking up lyrics online and using lines in your own work, unless you're citing, unless you're referencing, unless you're using it as a stylistic device, it is not all that good to do. I wouldn't recommend that. Having a formal education, I'm not really sure. It might help. It might give you all of these things like hard work you put in the education, like the process. I think if there's an education that teaches you songwriting, it'd give you some process and then teach you all of these things. Education is as important as talent, I'd say. Having a recorder to record your ideas both lyrically and melodically and musically is something I do all the time. So yeah, it's a 4. Totally. Keep your ideas recorded either on paper or in a computer, or record them with your phone or a special dedicated recorder. Limitations. Limitations breed creativity. The more limitations you have, the more creative the end result's gonna be. This might seem counterintuitive because when you limit yourself, you feel like you're losing something. But actually, when you have too many options, too many associations, too many things to choose from, you fall into a stupor just through the sheer amount of the things you have to choose from. So limitations are a great way for you to boost your creativity. I'd say that's a 4, but that's a very good way to enhance what you're doing. If you wanted all of your words to start with a P, that would result in a very different song you would never normally write. Or if you decided to use a certain word or set of words in your song, that would make you work around those words to really get those creative gems out of yourself. And by the way, the songwriting process itself has limitations built in. You have to rhyme normally. You have to squeeze your lines in a certain amount of syllables. All of those are limitations without which your songs wouldn't be as creative as they are. And last but not least, actually finishing your songs is one of the most important things. You gotta finish your songs. You don't have to wait for perfect results, but you have to have a finished product to move on. That's why uploading my songs to digital platforms is so important, because I let go of the songs I've finished. And that's actually a marker of me finishing a song, releasing it. They don't have to be perfect, but you have to move on. Say something is finished, even if it's not bright and shiny, and keep on doing that. Without that, you won't get the experience you need to write more and more better songs. There you go. Experience, hard work, associations, having a process, and actually finishing songs are the things that influence your songwriting the most. Do invest some time in mastering these things. These are also important. Reading, having something to write your lyrics down, either a computer or a recorder or pen and paper. Having little snippets and drafts, practicing your rhymes, or using online rhyming solution. Mastering your stylistic devices, mastering your metaphors and synonyms. Storytelling, limiting yourself, boosting your creativity, editing your lyrics and releasing them. Being talented, doing improv, practicing stand-up comedy, having a formal education, using Google and Wikipedia or ChatGPT to look things up, knowing song structures, having bright ideas, waiting for inspiration, and being overall well-versed in music, and probably even playing musical instruments, singing and composing music in a digital audio workstation, using references, networking with other people, and stealing from others, copying and pasting. I guess you get the overall idea. Thank you for watching the video till the very end and not skipping any bit of it. It helps YouTube know the video is worthy and helps it promote the video across viewers. And most importantly, it makes me happy. Please like the video if you liked the video. Please subscribe if you have a heart. And I wish you to write more and more lyrics, because you're awesome. Yes, you are.